In this video, I want to show you how you can improve your brush work and how this will make all your artworks better. This technique works with every medium where you have to use a brush to apply it. But first we have to fill in this sleeping fox. I'm just going to add a few first layers here before I can show you what I mean. So now I have filled out all the basic shapes. Doesn't look very great yet. So what I'm going to do is creating wedge-like shapes. It sounds weird, but I'm going to show you. So this is my reference photo here. You would think that it's kind of overwhelming. We have lots of different color values. We have lots of fur. I'm just going to ignore that. Instead, what I'm going to do is trying to identify shapes. We have a shape going around the eyes. Then we have, this huge triangular shape. We have here this little weird thing. The distinction between the tail and the rest of the body is also just a shape. We have, of course, the snout, and here is like a weird thing that goes around almost like an outline. And I try to identify these shapes and simplify them and then create wedge-like forms out of them. So let me demonstrate it. I'm going to start with the one here on the eye. I take this smaller detail brush and then create this shape here. And this shape has almost like a little tip here. And on the other eye, there's a similar shape, almost in the same color. So I'm going to add that too. They don't have to be perfect. It will still look good. This is the great thing with this technique. It's like a mosaic. The pieces don't have to be perfect. Your brain will automatically make an image out of it. And this is the technique that I'm using for all my paintings almost. And I do this with watercolor. So here, let me demonstrate you another one. Here is almost like a border around the fur on his head. And you see I make these weird geometrical shapes. It's not always formed like a wedge, but I call it like that because this often has like one tip and then the end of the shape is kind of flared out. Maybe you can also call them little triangular or geometric forms. I would just do the other prominent one here. I just think in shapes. I don't think, oh, here's individual hair, here's fur, here are little details. Just create these strange shapes. You see, this kind of resembles a wedge a little bit. It creates this almost like a funnel or tornado-like form. I'm just going to draw that out here to the top of the fox. And this is basically how I fill in the entire painting. This tornado form here has like an inside area here, right? So once this is dried, I can just add another shape on top of it. So I use the wedge technique for everything. But another thing is to adapt this technique to what you're painting. I also add just a few of these little strokes whenever I add a wedge. Let's do it here. On his tail, here's like this little area where you can find a shadow. So I simplify it to this shape here. And then to flare it out, I add a bit of fur. I roughly follow the shape of the fur that I can see at my reference, but I'm not too strict. Just a little bit. Here we have the thigh of the fox, and then I just add a few strokes here. I don't overdo it, so I don't add like fur everywhere to cover the fox. In the end, I might add a little bit more, but in the beginning, I concentrate on the shapes first. I will just continue this technique until the point where I want to add opaque layers on top. For example, when I want to add highlights or I have to add corrections, then I switch to gouache, and then I just do the same with gouache. So I will just fill in the rest of the painting now until we get to that stage. Oh, and if you guys are interested in watching step-by-step tutorials where I go through the entire process of a painting from start to finish while explaining what techniques I do, you should check out my Patreon page and become one of my students. I have over 200 step-by-step painting tutorials and videos that you can watch, and you can download my reference photos, the sketch to print out, and I also have an in-depth material guide where I talk about what materials I use for all of my mixed media paintings. Just follow the link in the video description and become one of my students. Okay, now comes the exciting part. I have painted the entire fox. I filled in everything. I added lots of triangular shapes and wedges, as you can see here, like lots of these. Even in the flowers, you can see them here on lots of areas. And now I'm going to refine it even more with gouache paint, because It's all very like muddy and dark, but I needed the dark color values to represent the motif. It's like a dark night scene, but now we need to get some areas out of it. And again, we're using this specific brush technique. So I'm going to start with this area here, which is very light. Important is that you have a flat brush, and then you can both use the long side of the brush and the wider side. And what I do here is, again, just working in shapes. With these brushes, obviously you get more rectangular shapes or like longer strokes, but that doesn't really matter. Important is that you simplify the shapes. It's like I said in the beginning, it doesn't matter what shape the individual mosaic pieces have, as long as they roughly represent the subject and colors and values are matching as well. A little trick that I do when I paint fur is I start at one area and then just draw out the brush in the direction of the fur. So this is like a little adjustment that I do in addition to adding individual shapes. You can just go with the dynamic of your subject. In this case, it's the fur, and just adapt a bit to it. And if you have a larger area, use a larger brush here. As you can see here, you have to mix your color properly. For example, this area here has a more yellowish tint, so I want to add a bit of yellow into the white. And then I just draw the brush in this direction. I just simplify the shape here, and I'm only painting on the highlights and where I can see it's lighter. The shadows are already there, so I just let them be. And you see, I just follow the shape of the flower, like of these individual highlight areas here. I don't try to add details to that or any contours or anything. I basically try to think in shapes. And this is a great technique to get depth to a painting in a somewhat simple way once you've understood it. So this is a final painting, and I'm super happy with how this little fox turned out. He is so cute and adorable. Let me know what you guys think, and if you have tried a technique like this or how you work with mixed media techniques. And I see you in the next one. Have a great day. Bye!